Finally, it's about time. Got a clear night where I can bring the AM5 out to play. So the plan tonight is to do the Horsehead Nebula, and then on Wednesday it's gonna be nice again. So I will go out for the Comet. I have to go to the observatory for that. Doing a Comet from my backyard in a Bortle 9 sky, it's not gonna look good. So we'll just go for the Horsehead Nebula and use the L-enhanced filter to do it. So that way I can be shooting straight over downtown Pittsburgh and still get a good shot. Let's get set up. All right, now what I'm doing here is setting up my portable observatory. It's basically just a regular 10 by 10 pop-up canopy, but I've just removed the roof struts and I'll put tarps around the side. And the reasoning for setting this all up is, if you can see behind me, there's a street light right there. And there's another street light right there. And actually, behind the camera that way is another one, so I'll be putting a piece of tarp right here too. And it'll all be to block off all of those street lights, and I'm already starting to see Orion over my house directly behind the camera. So when I set the AM5 up, it'll be just back far enough that it can still get over this and see Orion moving across the sky, but it'll be blocked from those street lights. And it is a little bit windy out here tonight. My lights have already fallen over a couple times. I have bricks on each leg of the canopy here, and I have bricks I'm also gonna put on the tarp itself to keep it from flapping around. And now I looked at the forecast and the wind is supposed to calm down throughout the evening, so that will help, but as we get started, it might feel a little bit windy. Let's keep going. Now, when doing a setup like this with the canopy and these tarps, it's very important to have very thick tarps that'll help block things out. Now, I got mine at Home Depot, but when you go shopping around, don't go cheap, go for the thickest ones you can find. And for the method I'm holding the tarps up on the canopy, there's these clamps that a friend of mine found. We use them for camping all the time to hang up basically tarps or anything like that on our canopies while we're out camping. So if you want to know what those are, I will link those down in the description. They come in very handy when setting up a portable observatory. So this blue tarp here is the one that I usually put across, but I only need it to go to about here because of that street light. So normally when it's really cold, behind the camera there's a window, and I put a little camera there so I can sit inside and just monitor from my tablet while things shoot. It's a nice night, so I'm sitting out here with it tonight. But now the fun part. Let's get everything put together. Now, in the last video, I did show you how to set up the AM5, so we're not gonna go over that. But once we get into the app, I'll go over polar aligning, getting focused, and getting on the subject. And then after that, we'll probably get 4 hours worth of light data, and that'll give us tons of data for processing. Now, I know I always butcher the name, but On Attack is kind of a pain of a star to deal with when you're processing the Horsehead Nebula because it's such a bright star next to just an awesome object. Now, luckily, I have a half an hour until it actually is dark, so let's go ahead and get the tripod in place, balanced, and get things going along. The thing I really love about this thing is how portable it is when it's all put together. With the HEQ5 Pro, I have to tear it apart to move it, but with this, not so much. And like I said in the setup video, there's no markings on the tripod that point you directly towards north, but I know over my neighbor's house behind me, Polaris is just to the upper right of their balcony up there. So it helps me get it at least aligned and pointed in the right direction. Now for this setup that I have with the tarps and the pop-up, I actually have to lower the back corner here just so it can see Polaris to get polar aligned. Once it's aligned, I put it right back up and just get running. All right, we are on and rocking. It's time to turn off the lights and get the polar aligning. And while the app loads up, you might be wondering why I put a tarp on the side that there's a fence to basically your right as you're looking at the video. My neighbor here has a porch light that he likes to leave on all the time, which is kind of a bummer, but the tarp helps block that out. Okay, now that we are in the app, and just like the last video where we set it all up, I don't even have to do anything. I can just go ahead and hit enter. Now that we're about to polar align, like I said, the plane that the telescope is looking through is actually still hitting the top of the canopy here. So I have to lower it down and then we can get polar aligning. So let's turn the light back off, lower that down and polar align. Since there's no polar scope on the AM5, you kind of have to eyeball it, getting pointed in the right direction at first. This looks good to me, so let's see what polar alignment does. Let's just hit play and let it run. Could be better, could be worse, but it's workable. One nice thing about the little net, as I called it, is you can set your tablet or whatever right on top of it and do your polar alignment and not have to worry about things getting too out of the way for you. So what I'm gonna do first is unlock the azimuth knobs, and I'm going to turn the azimuth counterclockwise just a little bit and then refresh. Okay, so it appears we need to do a little bit more than that, so I'm actually going to move the mount itself and double check my balance. Okay, everything's balanced there. Now I know moving the mount during polar alignment is not always the best idea, but with the lack of polar scope on this mount, it kind of becomes a little bit more necessary because of the limited range of motion for the azimuth bolts. Yeah, see, that's what we like to see right there. Moving the mount is not always the best option, but sometimes you kind of have to. All right, so back in the app, we are very close. So let's go ahead and scoot it over just a little bit more. We might actually be right on the line there. And then we'll start doing the altitude. Okay, so this is close enough. I think we're gonna start doing the altitude. So for now, I'm gonna lock the azimuth bolts so that way those don't move, and I'm gonna unlock the altitude, and we're gonna go, yeah, turning it clockwise raises it up a little bit. So I just did that. Okay, so more clockwise. Oh, too much. Now we gotta go a little bit counterclockwise. Just remember, when you're adjusting the altitude knobs on this mount, turning it clockwise takes it up in the app, and turning it counterclockwise takes it down in the app. So it correlates very well with the app. That way you can go up and down as requested by the app very smoothly. So we'll do a little bit of counterclockwise there. So it looks like we are getting a little bit too far to the left there. So I'm gonna go back to the azimuth knobs, but I'm not going to unlock them. When you leave them locked, that's actually where you can do your fine adjustments. Now, once you're actually done, they won't move, so you're fine there. All right, good enough for now. So, fair, guess you're walking, blah, blah, blah. Very funny, ZWO. Okay, so let's back out to preview for a second so we can get to the mount controls. And then I like to just send it home. All right, and now that that's done, we're gonna go ahead and zoom out here. Actually, right around the area I want to be. Just a little lower. So we're gonna go to Aldebaran as the focus star tonight. And the reasoning for that is behind my house right now, if I were to point the scope at Sirius, it would be hitting the chimney that's no longer in use because this house is over 100 years old. But Aldebaran is in a good spot to be our focus. And as we can see, it wasn't quite on it, so it's pretty neat that you can watch in the Skyview app part of the app, it getting centered. All right, now we're good to go. Now we're gonna back out and go to focus mode, and I need to put the bat knob mask on. Now that we are on our star that we want to be on, let's go ahead and get it focused. Yeah, look at that, close to focus. Okay. So if we do the zoom part here, and give it a second because it has to update. You can see that there are some very minor adjustments that need to be made. All right. Oops, went the wrong way, so we'll back it out. Ooh, that looks good right there. I'm gonna zoom that back out. Now on Wednesday when I go for the comet, instead of doing a full recording, I'm just gonna go shoot the comet and then I will put it at the end of this video. And then after we deal with the comet, it looks like maybe one more nice day this week, and then we can go ahead and put the autofocuser on. So this may be my last week manually focusing this telescope. Okay, perfect. That is exactly where we want it. So now I'm gonna have the mount go back home. It's always just a little safety precaution just to send it back home, just to make sure everything's fine. And then we're gonna run polar alignment one more time. I don't know if you can see him there, but that's the cuter Orion. I guess I'll brighten it up in editing so you can see him. Oh, no pee right beside my scope, dude. Well, that was almost a mishap. He peed right beside my scope, but luckily it wasn't enough to start running down to it and hitting the power converter. Okay. So let's go back to here. Zoom out. Spin it south. And take it here. Now, I kind of want to change the rotation just a little bit. And the one thing I haven't tested yet is if I rotate it while it's on, if it updates. So I'm gonna have it go there. What I'm gonna do, because I don't have an auto rotator or anything on like that, just gonna sit behind this real quick, out of his pee spot. Just want to adjust just a little bit. What we will do is I'm gonna set this to, let's just say 30 seconds real quick. I know it's gonna be a little bit blurry because there's no guiding, but I wanted to reframe it just a tad. Okay, you can see the flame just a little bit. All right, so what I'm gonna do is do one more of those, but I'm turning up the gain all the way. Just because I want to be able to pull those out and just frame it just the right way. And then I'll set the gain back down. But it is pretty nice sitting here right behind the scope and looking right up and seeing the constellation of Orion right there. And even shooting above downtown Pittsburgh, Orion shines bright. The other one barks loud. Okay, good. That's what I wanted right there. Let's give you a little more rotation. And once we have the rotation to where we want it, Then we'll scoot it over just a little bit so there's a little bit more of the horse head in the frame. So like the fainter edges, that would be to the right of the head. All right, just a tad more. Almost where I want it. Okay, and this is a nice little trick if you're just trying to get framed up. Just crank your gain, set it to a short exposure so you're not waiting forever, and let it run and make any adjustments you need to. Just a hair more, and then I'm gonna take it off of center from on attack and get a little bit more to the right so that way the horse head is a little more centered. All right, perfect. That's what I want right there. Now, all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tell it to center like right about there. Just very subtle movement. All right, and we're gonna do one more just to verify that the frame looks exactly how I want it. Whoa. Over here, over here. Come here, sit. Oh, I know, buddy. Oh, what? What? Don't mess with the tablet. Okay, that framing is exactly how I want this. So, what we're gonna do is I'm going to get guiding calibrating and run in and grab the thumb drive and my coat, and we will get the auto run set up and get this thing going. And hopefully the wind will calm down just a little bit too. So, I'll just get auto guiding calibrating. Don't really need to watch that if you used an ASIR before, so we're gonna just skip ahead and get to the good stuff. All right, so it looks like we are guiding. We actually did have better guiding before I plugged in the thumb drive, but it'll fix itself. But that's okay. Now we can go ahead and get our auto run going. So, we'll go ahead and get rid of all that, and we'll switch this to, I'm just gonna say horsehead, because you know what? We can do that with the ASIR app. Oh, and the other Orion's back out here again. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we'll go ahead and set up our shooting schedule. Now, I am not doing 300 seconds because I'm not gonna wait for creating darks for that. But we are gonna do 120 seconds, and let's see what 100 look like. About 3.5 hours. What time is it? Almost 8:30, so that'll put it to about midnight, and it sets right around midnight, so yeah, that's fine. Actually, what's 150 look like? Yeah, way too many. Okay, so we're just gonna do 100 frames at 2 minutes. And we're just gonna roll with that. And the other thing before getting started is if you changed your gain, set it back down to where it was before. I leave mine at 120. And there we go. Okay. And we can go ahead and get it running. And hilariously enough, before we even get started, it's gonna meridian flip. Well, what are the chances, huh? It is seriously straight up on the meridian, so I guess we'll watch it flip and then we'll let it go. So once this gets rolling, I'm gonna put the tarp up so that way that street light is blocked, and then we will skip ahead to the end of the video where I'm going to give you my initial thoughts of using the AM5 and the 2600. All right, let's go ahead and babysit some wires real quick. Dew heater one might have almost been a problem because of somebody's bathroom habits, But now that that's actually soaking into the ground, I can put the power supply back down on the ground. All right, so it is waiting for guide and shooting over that. So go ahead and get this set up. Now this tarp isn't necessarily the best for blocking light, but standing on the other side, it is a little bit better. But what can you do? Eventually I'm going to get out of the city and under some darker skies. So we got everything running and it's running smoothly. Now it's time to get some dinner going. But before I go ahead and get that done, I do have a question for you. If you live in an area where there's always that neighbor that won't turn off their light, or there's a street light nearby, what methods do you use to block it off? Do you use something like a tarp like I do? Do you have one of those pre-made observatory tents? What's the method you use? Let me know down in the comments below. All right, it's all back inside. Flats and flat darks have been done. The observatory's inside, and obviously the scope is inside. Now, moving it inside, the dew strap for the guide cam did move a little bit, but it was where it needed to be the whole time. So going over the things I liked about the AM5 right off the bat. First off, having it fully put together and being able to take it out of my house, up the steps, and if you look at my moon processing video, you'll see the stairs I have to walk up. Being able to easily carry all of this up those steps and just plop it down in place, excellent. I love that. Very great for portability from a garage to a backyard. One of the other things that I really did like about it, even though I had to polar align a few times, and one of them was because I left the bat knob mask on. Make sure you remember to take that off after focusing. But when it comes to the polar alignment, the one thing I really did like about the hardware itself is that the azimuth and the altitude knobs were very smooth, whether they were locked or unlocked. Now, in comparison, using something like the HEQ5 Pro, that's a little bit more rough. This is smooth. It's very smooth, but the one thing that I couldn't quite figure out, and I couldn't tell if it was the mount screwing up, the camera screwing up, or what, but I would make very subtle, just very, very subtle, just like that. And in the app, the target would jump way farther than it should, and way farther than it ever did with the HEQ5 Pro. So I'm not sure if that's just a little bit of a bug with the plate solving, or if it is a bug within the app version or the camera. Like I said, I have no idea. But it was just puzzling me, but once I got it close, I called it good enough. Now, one of the other things that I really did like hardware-wise about this is that when it did its meridian flip, it did it just like a regular equatorial mount, and it did it nice and smooth where it was real easy to babysit all the cables. I know this one looks like a little bit of a jumble. Sometimes I have a zip tie where I kind of hold the main camera's cable down here, but tonight I wasn't running with that. I kind of wanted to see the capabilities of basically this giant what the heck is it pile of cable that could get snagged, and wanted to see what happened, and nothing snagged. One of the dew straps almost got snagged because of Orion's bathroom use, and I had to pull the power supply off the ground and into the net, and it was sitting on top of the USB plug for the dew heater. But you know, while it was meridian flipping, I was able to just watch it and hold on to that, and it did its thing just fine. Now, on the software side, specifically for the AM5, it was seamless. Very seamless to get this whole thing up and running. Once I got it polar aligned and focused and on the horse head, didn't have to think about it at all, even with the little bit of wind that was going on. That did calm down around 9 p.m. and it was just calm the rest of the night. Now, when looking at the subs themselves within the app, they looked pretty sharp. So guiding was doing its thing as it normally does with the ASI Air Plus, but it seemed like the mount itself was taking commands from the guide cam very well and keeping things super sharp. So we're gonna have to see what the final product looks like. But moving on to the ASI2600MC Pro, The framing was actually very good for that. I liked it. But there was one thing that I didn't like, and that was just an app setting. It wasn't the camera itself. It was, I think that the continuous preview slot in the ASAR might have a slight bug in it, because I like to see that continuous preview. That way, if it's snagging a power line across the street from my house, I can see that it's in there and I know to ignore those subs or just delete them right away. I had to go into the folder and actually preview all of the images manually. But it was actually on frame 99 out of 100, I noticed that the camera was already hitting the tarp. And I looked back and I lost about 25 subs. On frame 75, that is the last frame without the tarp in it. So we're gonna have 75 frames worth of data. So just a little bit under 3 hours instead of the 4 hours I wanted. But that's okay, the horse head, we could still work with that. All in all, initial thoughts getting this thing running for the night, fantastic. That little snafu I had with the polar alignment was probably just user error on my part. So have a laugh if you want, but the rest of it, it performed exactly how I wanted it. So with that said, enjoy the images, and if you found this video helpful, please do like, comment, and then maybe consider subscribing. I want to thank you for watching. Clear skies.